All right. So I'm going to introduce our day chair for today, Mark Leibovitz. Will be our day chair. Mark is a Duluth native and resides in Minneapolis with his wife, Jennifer. They have two children, Jackson in Washington, D.C., and Tessa at Skidmore College in New York. He likes to fly, ski, and see live music, as he just mentioned, and go to the theater with his family and friends. He works with great colleagues and partners as CEO of the Lion Hotel Group, a Duluth-based hotel management company. Please welcome Mark Leibovitz.
Well, I'm really pleased to introduce Lauren Bennett McGinty, the Executive Director of Explore Minnesota, because we share a common purpose, which is advocating for hospitality in Minnesota. It's so critical to the state, and if you're involved in it as your primary business, it's been an interesting few years and continuing. Lauren Bennett McGinty was appointed State Tourism Director by Governor Walz in November 2021. I guess the pandemic was over then, is that right? Since starting her work with Explore Minnesota, Bennett McGinty has directed statewide tourism plans, policies, and programs to promote Minnesota as a top travel destination. She has more than 12 years of executive hotel experience in communications, operations, finance, hospitality, education, and advocacy at Minnesota-based nonprofits. Most recently, she served as the director of the Minnesota Craft Brewers Guild, where she led strategic plans, executed major events, and guided overall marketing for more than 160 breweries. Lauren loves everything about Minnesota's unique four seasons, including the great outdoors, tuning into local music, festivals and events, and tasting her way through the state's vibrant food and craft beverage scene. So please welcome Lauren. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I always say somebody's connected to somebody in craft beer, and I was right this morning. So, but so happy to hear all of you going on vacation. I love that. moving around the state, seeing new things. There's a lot out there, and happy to support that and let you all know that most businesses are a part of tourism. It's a huge part of our economy, as you'll find out here, and I think it's just so important that we talk about how critical it is to keeping things moving, keeping small towns buzzing, and getting new people here to experience the beauty and just kind of awe-inspiring things that Minnesota has to offer. So I'll get off my soapbox for a second here and give a presentation. There we go. Okay, so Explore Minnesota is the state's tourism office. We promote travel to and within the state. We do some promotion inside of the state, and I'll get into the details a little bit more later on how that balances out percentage-wise. But primarily our goal is, for all intents and purposes, to bring visitors from outside the state to spend their money here. That's kind of the baseline. We have other goals as well. Our vision and mission, which we are actually changing very soon and will publicly announce within the next couple weeks, but for now, is to elevate us as a premier destination. Back in March, when we had our tourism conference, I declared that I would like Minnesota to be a top 10 state for travel. And right now we have a lot of top 10 articles. We have a lot of places that kind of make all these different listicles, but we are not necessarily top 10 for places that people think about when they want to travel, and I want to change that. So we kind of are these things on paper, but we're also, I can get this to work. There we go. Several other things. So I always like to talk about us as storytellers. We take what is going on around the state and we get to launch it out to the world. And my favorite thing is learning more about various parts of Minnesota that I've never heard of, or festivals and events that are taking place that are really unique and special, like the Spam Museum's 85th anniversary, or how Grand Rapids is celebrating Judy Garland's 100th birthday. So we have a lot of really unique, special things here, and I love to talk about it. And we make connections all around the state, whether you're a DMO, you're a hotel, you're in food and beverage, we get to connect people and we get to tell those stories as we do it. We are innovators. We have to find ways to work with a small budget to talk about Minnesota worldwide. So we are always thinking of new ways to do that. We are always getting creative with how our ads function. And just for context, among our neighbors, we actually have the smallest budget. So to be able to kind of stand out in that crowd is really special. And we're open-minded, we're always looking for new opportunities. So that's why I love talking to groups like this, because, you are also the same way. You like to find new opportunities and find new ways to talk about the work that you're doing. So this is a quick overview of how we support the travel and tourism industry in the state of Minnesota. We work with destination marketing organizations that also include some convention and visitor bureaus, depending on how they work in their city. Tribal nations, we're actually right now scheduling a tour of tribal nations so that we can talk to them more about how they might like to talk about tourism and how we might be able to help them. And then, tourism related businesses, whether that's festivals or events, major festivals, events, or, other hospitality. I also work with the commissioner at Deed, and we do some roundtables with various business owners throughout the year as well. Co-ops, partnerships, welcome centers. If you're ever driving over the borders, be sure to stop at one of our welcome centers. Our staff are super knowledgeable and very friendly. And then of course, event and story marketing. And then we have our tourism council. So if at any point, anybody in hospitality and tourism would like to join, we have some new openings every year. And we have a 28-person council that advises and provides feedback and kind of just shares what's going on in the industry. There we go. This is a laundry list that I'm not going to read out loud, but you can see that we have a lot of connections to various parts of the hospitality and tourism industry, but we also have a lot of national associations that we work with. So I'm fortunate to be part of the National State Tourism Director group with USA Travel. And we also have several other marketing associations that we're part of that allow us to be able to reach more people with less dollars. So places like Cruise the Great Lakes. And if you didn't know, for the first time in I think 13 years, we're getting cruises back in Duluth, which is really exciting. And then starting next year, they're actually going to be an embarkment point. So they built a brand new facility there to house it. It's really exciting stuff. And we also work with, the Mississippi River Parkway Commission and the various international LGBTQ plus travel associations and other groups that allow us to kind of learn more about what's going on in the country and the world, but then also kind of spread our marketing dollars further. So some of these stats are a little old. We don't necessarily have a good snapshot from our last quarterly survey, but I think that this is a good thing to talk about. So obviously, in March, things were still in progress, and I think they still are in progress. I think if you are in the hotel or food and beverage business, you might not be seeing a full recovery until after the end of this year and into next year. And that all, of course, depends on how things go with inflation and how things go with COVID. It's still there. And so looking at these numbers, we're seeing that businesses reported that they were doing better, but not fully back to recovery at that time. It is lovely outside, right? It's so nice. It's patio season. It's driving to the North Shore season. We know that people are getting out there. And we also know that Minnesota is a hot spot for people coming and discovering what we have to offer, because the pandemic was able to kind of open up everybody's eyes to the fact that we have tons of outdoor recreation and a lot of options for people to kind of get out of their homes and try something new. So there was a really positive outlook for summer, and we still see that going. That 91% of Minnesota residents and 76 plan to take leisure and or overnight trips. That number is also being reflected in a Longwoods International survey that is saying 91% of Americans still plan to travel. Of that number, we just got this data yesterday, 31% say that inflation, gas prices will impact their travel plans, but not enough to fully cancel. So they might just kind of make adjustments. So it's something we're keeping an eye on. We have been doing a ton of work on Trip on a Tank Full series. So where can you get in Minnesota on just one tank of gas? We also are kind of having conversations with the Department of Transportation about various electric vehicle charging routes that people can take. So we're trying really hard to make sure that everybody understands that regional travel to Minnesota is easy, convenient, and doesn't cost as much as flying somewhere else. We're of course also hitting the fly market, but in the summer, a lot of people like to stay regional so that they can do a quicker trip. So those numbers I anticipate at the end of the summer will be higher, but again, I think with some hotels, especially in the Twin Cities area in southern Minnesota, we're not going to see those numbers bounce back up for a little while yet. And of course, I've been tracking these issues since about March, and we've got labor shortages are still an issue, gas prices are still an issue, confidence inflation, and now, of course, we're looking to potential recession. So, just keeping an eye on those and figuring out how we can market the affordability of Minnesota, but also kind of all of the majesty we have to offer, whether it's in the Twin Cities or in greater Minnesota. So we recently started strategic planning. We kicked it off in March, and we gathered stakeholder feedback from around the industry and put it all together to kind of create our draft plan. And we are not yet in phase 3, which is going to be after we launch the plan. We're still in phase 2, but we're working on an integrated strategic marketing plan. So Explore Minnesota has several different departments, but most of them are working on marketing. And previously, we just haven't had a plan that says, how does industry relations communicate with marketing, or the welcome centers and communications? And so we're bringing it all together, and it's very big and very robust and a lot of work. And in a short amount of time. But staff has been fantastic, and we are really excited about our new strategic plan because it really moves our state forward. I think previous to the pandemic, a lot of the work we were doing was find your true north and kind of that classic Minnesota feel. We're not too boastful. We're just here to say that it's great. And I want to be boastful. I want to be louder. And you'll see in some of our ads that they're very different than things we've done previously. We're really at a point where places like Wisconsin or Illinois or, North Dakota are doing similar things to what we were doing. And we wanted to move away from that and differentiate ourselves and really be kind of that North Star that people can kind of flock to and see something a little bit different. So with that, I wanted to share a little bit from our marketing campaign. So if you were familiar with Find Your True North, we're no longer doing that. But we really wanted to make all of the places seem 10 times more magical than they already are, because they are definitely. But we added some special effects to some of the photos that we have and some of the videos to just amp up the colors and kind of what you experience when you're looking at them. But overall, we really wanted to do a lot of these like big wide shots to show that whether you're in a city or you're on the North Shore or even in southern Minnesota, you have these like big experiences that you can have, and they're very magical. So very fun and different for us as we're getting ready for, if you can believe it, we just wrapped our winter video shoot, and it is so odd to watch snowboarders while it's 90 degrees outside, but here we are. And we're doing a few things a little bit differently. We're going to be doing a lot more quick cuts and visceral experience sounds and all of that good stuff. So we're kind of taking this and amplifying it even more. But I do have a video, hopefully. Okay.
Did the moon really fill the entire night sky? Was the food made by an alchemist? And the streets filled with music? Could we reach up and touch the stars in this world that felt so intimately ours? Were these experiences out of this world? Or did they just feel otherworldly? And is there any difference? Explore Minnesota.
So that's our 30-second ad that is playing sometimes here. I know that the governor said he saw it on Care 11, which is just wonderful. He was very excited. He said, I was watching the ad and I was like, wow, I really want to go there. And then it said Explore Minnesota. So that's great. I love that. That's a really good plug for us. And the ad, as you can see, is very different, but it's magical. It shows kind of from southern Minnesota all the way up to where you can see the northern lights. We have beautiful experiences to offer. So I think it's a really fun way to kind of reset where we're at in Minnesota.
Did the moon really fill the
There we go. Okay, so kind of talking about money, 70% of our marketing dollars are spent outside Minnesota to get people here. So if you're seeing ads here in Minnesota, that's okay. But I always get questions about how come I'm not seeing it all the time. And if you are seeing it all the time, then we're not doing our job right. So 70% are spent outside, bringing that new money in. Certainly we encourage people to move around the state as well. I think, the hardest part is we as a community in the Twin Cities especially tend to just go north, right? So if you're thinking about going somewhere in state, I suggest southwest or southeast. As you saw, there was some caves that's in southeast Minnesota. And then we also have a national wildlife refuge in the Pipestone area that you can visit too. So there's a lot of really great opportunities outside of the North Shore, but I get it. Anyway, so $8 million is going to be spent on marketing over the next year. And that actually includes our EDA funding. So this is the largest we've been able to spend on marketing in the past several years. We actually have not had a budget increase in 15 years. So I'm working on that, hoping that our new strategic plan and kind of all the new things we're doing will see a budget boost in the coming session. And then as you can see, these sort of blue markets here are current markets. And on the right side there is how we kind of spend and where that falls. And you'll see that digital is huge. So that keeps growing and growing. Traditional marketing on TV or on radio just is not as big and is not as impactful anymore. And so that digital really encompasses anything from banner ads or digital magazine pieces to social media spend. You can see that we have paid social in there as well. So we've got a good mix of things and people are seeing things everywhere. The nice thing is that digital spend allows us to bring people directly to our website. And if you haven't been to exploreminnesota.com, I suggest checking it out. It's a beautiful website. And we've done just a lot of really great things. And we actually are one of the top tourism websites for accessibility, which is a great thing to be as all of that changes. But kind of in the markets, I just want to point out that we just did some really great experiential projects where we got to go to Pride in St. Louis, Missouri. And we're also in Chicago around the 4th of July. And we put up a really big tent with pictures of Minnesota on the outside and people got to walk through it and see videos of Minnesota. And we had thousands of people kind of come through and sign up to learn more and enter to win a dream vacation here. So we're doing kind of a variety of different marketing tactics, including some in-person stuff in other states, which is really fun. So here are some of our niche marketing efforts, and our niche marketing allows us to be countrywide. So as you saw before, we had those smaller markets kind of right around in the region, but these allow us to really diversify around the country in various magazines or online publications. We can kind of hit these various groups of people and get them to come here. And so these are serious people who are, so you see like biking. Sure, we want people to be biking around casually, but we also want to kind of hit biking markets that are specific to mountain biking, investing in that product and wanting to go somewhere and try some new trails that they haven't been to before. So that's where we get to kind of invest a little differently and try new things. And really diversify our marketing portfolio. Here are some of the strategic partnerships that we have in Minnesota that allow us to kind of broaden beyond our borders as well. So some of these pieces allow us to kind of hit people within Minnesota, but then we have things like the Iowa Wild, our Minnesota Wild affiliate, and we have some in-stadium signage and on TV when they are on. So that is some additional exposure. Minnesota Aurora is our newest partner, and Explore Minnesota is the jersey sponsor. So if you ever get to one of those games, you'll see our logo on their jersey. But these are just some of the partnerships that we have to, again, kind of diversify the way that we're marketing. You kind of have to be super creative these days about how you get the word out about where to travel, because especially now that the pandemic has settled down a little bit, people are wanting to go out. And so you're really fighting for that share of voice among all of the other folks in the region. So if you're interested, and I can send these slides afterwards, this is usually something that I do for DMOs, but I also like to do it for businesses in the hospitality industry. If you're having an event or you want your business listed as a place of interest for people to visit, you can add it to our website. And we're actually making improvements to our business listing and event listing right now, so that it's easier to sign up and it's easier to manage. And easier for people to search. So when people come to our website, they can figure out what their travel plans are and they can add your business to their travel plans. So I always like to put a little plug in for us there, but you don't have to memorize this right now. Other things that we offer the industry, if you weren't aware, various opportunities like grant programs for marketing tourism related activities. Of course, we have all of our marketing, and you can download the Dream State Toolkit if there's anything you want to market that kind of has that feel. We have the EMT Express, which I always suggest everybody sign up for, because you can see what's happening in and around the tourism industry in the state. And then, of course, we have research and reports, which I think is really great for businesses to just kind of see where the industry is trending, what input we're getting. We do a quarterly survey with Hospitality Minnesota and the Federal Reserve of Minneapolis to figure out business conditions for resorts, hotels, and other hospitality businesses. And we're actually going to be compiling a monthly report that our researcher just showed to us yesterday, actually, where it has been tracking trends in anything from hotel occupancy rates to our quarterly business survey that we do, and then a few other data points. And it's kind of taking all of our data and putting it into one PowerPoint monthly so you can see where we are on the road to recovery. So that's a really exciting thing that we're going to launch soon. So lots and lots of stuff on our website, on our industry page, if you're interested in kind of learning more about tourism and the impact of tourism. And no, that's it. Okay. So I will take any other questions too, if anybody has any. Yeah.
Showed some stage where if you had more money, you would reach out to, and there was some west and a couple of the east. The ones to the east have a lot more people close. Well, no, and I was wondering if that's where you were going to focus more, because if you get out from Montana, rather the numbers of people are that was just a thought I had when I saw that. The other piece that jumped out at me is you talked about the arts and culture stuff. We are probably one of the 3 or 4 best places in the United States because of the world-class Minnesota Orchestra, the Guthrie Theater, the MIA, we just go on and on. The resources are incredible.
The Walker.
I don't think that was me. And I hope that somehow that's being taken advantage of, because we are really remarkable in terms of the cultural amenities in Minnesota, particularly in the metro area.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think outside of Chicago, we're really one of the only locations kind of in the greater Midwest that has those amenities. So we definitely push that. And actually, I'm really excited about a winter ad that we're doing that features a contemporary ballet, which we've never done before. It's something totally unique. And if you saw it, you would be like, I can't believe that's Minnesota. So we're really kind of leaning into that. I will say it's been really interesting to hear, I'll talk to somebody from maybe Lake of the Woods or Grand Rapids. They're like, we should only talk about fishing. Which, hey, I love fishing. We absolutely should talk about fishing, but we also have to balance that with the arts and culture. And so kind of with that, and as our strategic plan goes live in a few weeks here, you're going to see a lot more emphasis in welcoming all and kind of working with more of our cultural communities, our LGBTQ plus communities, and really finding ways that we can engage the various aspects of sort of non-traditional what you think of when you think of, you know, arts and culture, and in elevating the stories and the experiences beyond kind of the staple things that we think of. So we're really excited about that as well.
I'm just curious, with the limited budget you've got, how do you measure which ones of your efforts are being most productive in bringing the most folks into Minnesota that might not otherwise come here?
It's a great question. So we work with a group called True Media. They do ad buying. And then we also work with Weber Shandwick. And, you know, we do a lot of measuring. We have a dashboard that is overwhelming. But really, it comes down to testing a lot of things ahead of time to know that they will have a good impact. And I think that that is where, you know, we've been fortunate where we get to kind of field test something. So when we had chosen this new Dream State campaign, we did try the Find Your True North in a little updated fashion. And we kind of compared and contrasted with a focus group, and the focus group chose the Dream State and said that that was much more of an experience they want to have than just kind of the Find Your True North piece. So it's a lot of testing and then a lot of like hoping. And then really just kind of measuring where people are coming from, where our website visitors are coming from. The website world is changing when cookies go away, but cookies have been going away for years now, so we'll see. But really just kind of figuring out where the most traffic is coming from, and then changing and shifting our spend to accommodate the people who are more interested. So it's kind of a constant updating engine that we're running here.
Lauren, very, very informative. I really appreciate having this update. Since I do a little work with the initiative foundations around the state, I was just wondering, you have so many partnerships already. Are they playing a role at all among your partnerships to help sort of focal or localize some of the efforts you're making to draw people in, or to make people more aware of specific regional opportunities for tourism?
Yes, so most of our partnerships are usually kind of cooperative or in kind. And so we're both putting money in to elevate whatever event or feature, whatever that is. So it is a shared marketing venture. I will also say that we have been getting more into kind of opportunistic marketing. And as you know, Minnesota has actually been have been the star of some pretty marquee events. We have, you know, the 3M Open that's coming up. We have the MLS All-Star Game. We had the Women's Final Four. So we're in talks with a lot of those groups to just kind of figure out where we can fit in. The Twin Cities Marathon is coming up, and we're going to be working with them. They bring 30,000 runners to the Twin Cities from around the world, and then another 300,000 spectators, which is incredible, and they're celebrating their 40th anniversary. So we're working with them too. So really a lot of it is kind of finding those opportunities and then partnering with people who want to partner with us, I think, and then we can kind of share the load there.
There we go. What do you think is the biggest roadblock at the legislature for getting some additional dedicated funding? Just knowing how much like sales tax is generated through the tourism industry. The Department of Revenue has reports on that annually. And I think if you look at proportionally how much of the sales tax that goes in from tourism that actually gets filtered back to the tourism industry is not very much. Right. So what do you think is the roadblock to kind of getting that level of education to the legislators about, hey, you need to reinvest in this in order to keep it cycling in?
Well, I think it's just that, it's education. And when I, in my previous role, I was also lobbyist for the Minnesota Craft Brewers Guild. And so just understanding that a lot of legislators are slammed with requests and things that their constituents want and don't necessarily know the finite details. So a lot of it is just getting in front of them and explaining to them all of the things you just said and more about the impact of tourism. And I think, we are strangely in the environmental committee for where our bills sit. So a lot of it is kind of educating, that group of people, which is a little different. Some of it is working with places like the DNR, who kind of help move our bills through, especially at the end of session and negotiations, and talking to the governor's office and just sharing what it is that we do. I think there's this sort of nebulous idea of what tourism is, but what I like to say is it's actually a visitor economy. So it's more than just people traveling and renting a cabin. It's really business travel. It's, even if you come over from Hudson for a night, it's all of that, and it's all impactful. And so it's educating people on, that if we didn't have Explore Minnesota Tourism, and if we weren't marketing to people from outside the state, every household would have to pay an additional $600+ back to the state, right? So how do we tell that story a little bit better? And so that is like one of my number one priorities for the next session, is really just providing tons and tons of education and frequently to the legislature and to the governor's office to show how impactful tourism is.
Any other questions? I do. Oh.
I'm an avid biker. In last September, I biked the Mississippi River Trail, starting from Itasca all the way down to the Iowa border. And so you talked about biking, mountain biking, but I'm kind of curious, right? The Twin Cities often talked about as this great bike livability community, but we have great bike trails. And so kind of from a national perspective, what is the biking tourism industry? I've never thought about leaving Minnesota to go biking, but I biked 600 miles last September on a great river trail / road. What is the national kind of economy around bike tourism?
Yeah, that's a great question. You almost left the state to go biking. If you went all the way down.
Across the border, stopped with the ball.
There you go. And you could have gone all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico if you really wanted to. But it's interesting that, if you're a really, really hardcore mountain biker and you want to kind of hit all the unique trails, certainly there is that small audience, but a lot of it is working with DMOs around the state to figure out, like you said, the Twin Cities is a great biking location. We know that there are rentable options here. And so we kind of want to promote that too. Everything we do, I say it has to be accessible, from the hardcore to just the casual engager of that activity. So sometimes we get questions about, why aren't we promoting snowmobiling? I'm like, well, how accessible is snowmobiling to somebody coming from Florida? That's a question that we have to ask all the time. So for biking, I don't know that the biking, the hardcore biking economy is as big, but I do know that we have tons of options for people to rent when they come, and we like to promote that too.
Great. Any other questions? I do have one. I'm a father of teenagers, and they don't go to websites or look at email, but I probably am influenced on what they will tell me they want to do in the state. How are you reaching them, whether it's YouTube or, all they do is follow people? So via TikTok or other things. So I'm just curious.
So we are, of course, on Instagram and TikTok, and I won't even say Facebook because they probably have never heard of it. But we are looking into kind of expanding our TikTok presence, because that is where, as they say, all the kids are hanging out, and it's becoming bigger and bigger. I will also say what we're doing that I think almost every state is probably doing now is working with influencers. So we recently just had Corey Lee, who does accessible traveling. He does a blog about using a wheelchair to travel, and he just did a couple days in Minnesota. We also just worked with The Wonderful Wives, which is a LGBTQ couple, and they came in for Pride, and they have a huge following. So really it's kind of finding those people that are in some of those niche areas that have those big followings that can come and experience Minnesota and share it out. We also worked with an influencer in Chicago who she is interested in now coming up here because she walked through our exhibit in Chicago and was so excited about it. So, it's just finding people either in our state or from outside of our state to come here and document their experiences. And that's kind of how they set their own travel guide and influence your children to influence you. And I keep telling our staff too, I'm like, we need to focus on younger people. I think traditionally you think about the person in the family that spends money. So our traditional age bracket was like 21 plus to 65 is kind of our target market. And I said, well, I don't know. I think a lot of kids now are influencing their parents to do things. And I think we need to start kind of showing them what that experience can be. So we are expanding that a little bit more, and we are very, very slowly dipping our toes into TikTok. It's scary out there. So we're just trying to figure it out.
We have a question online from Matthew. Matthew, unmute.
Lauren, good morning. I just wanted to say welcome back. We had you as a guest with the Craft Brewers Guild in spring of 2020, and it's great to see you again. We just wanted to say thanks for coming back, and thanks for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, and I can talk about beer too.
Brock likes beer. I think, is there any other questions? Otherwise, we'll turn it over to.
Awesome.
Have
Well,
Mark
thank you so
close.
much.
So we have a relationship with a Minneapolis organization that works with at-risk youth. And your speaker gift is to have the comfort in knowing that you've signed a book that a third grader will have from a community leader. So if you would please sign that, we'll get it to way to go. Yes. Closer to the mic. You guys know what I said. But I was just thanking Lauren, and if you would please sign this book, we'll get it to a third grader in Way to Grow. And thanks again. It's great to hear. We've got an advocate.
Yes, wonderful presentation, Lauren. Thank you. All right. So I wanted to thank everybody who volunteered today. Our greeter, Gail Noakes, the reflection from Joyce Agnew. Thank you. Happy Buck, Steve Morris, our day chair, Mark Lebovitz, and then Brock and Greg as our Zoom masters, and then also back to Steve again and Dick for our club admin. So as we mentioned many times, I'm going to say it again, next week, we will not be here. We will be at the Fillmore Theater. So please register, go to the website, follow the directions. We'll meet inside the Fillmore Theater lobby and then go upstairs. So with that, go out and have a wonderful Rotary week. Thank you.